22, I got involved with the Russian mafia. Here's how it happened.
Looks like they've been breastfeeding for a year.
Bart, what's your name? Bert?
Oh, my mom's gonna be so upset.
There's not a Mormon I've ever met that I haven't loved. Jesus Christ. Okay, we're rolling now. So anything you don't want to talk about, don't share.
Okay.
I'm nervous interviewing you. I'll tell you that right now.
Why?
Because I know Jim's sense of humor, and I know that you live with Jim.
Yeah.
So, and I know that Jim's technically clean, and if Jim has told you anything about me, I'm not very clean. And I know you're Catholic, but I'm Catholic. But so that's why I have LeeAnn here to go. Bert, what the hell?
But
so
I'm not Catholic.
I know, but you guys have the same sensibility.
I didn't say I was a good Catholic.
I already liked the fact that here, give her a piece of paper.
Sorry. I know. I just said, well, let's just pretend that never happened.
No, I already like the fact that I started to apologize for the house. And as I started to apologize, I realized you live the exact same life we do with, I think, 5 more kids than we have. We have
3 more kids. They have
3 more
5.
kids than we have. So I was like,
Yeah, and you have an outdoor space. So, like, imagine not having an outdoor space.
I can't.
So it's like, I am like, this is like amazing.
So
this is amazing.
What is your all's life like? I saw a video of your 2 youngest boys debating about sleep with Jim that made my fucking heart swell. I was like, your youngest is trying to explain that, okay, I'm not tired at the end of the night, but I'm tired in the mornings. But if we could just find a way for me to go to sleep when I got into the bed, that would really help. It was just fucking amazing. But I can't imagine all that many kids. What's an average day look like in your family?
An average day. Well, I guess in terms of average, if we were going to say school days, like that's because otherwise it's just not average.
Here, pull the mic a little closer.
Okay, sorry, hold on. Okay, better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
We just want to keep it a fist length away from your face.
And you can get comfortable and pull
you
it
can
toward
move the mic around if you want.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we get up at 6 a.m. I mean, when I say we, I mean not Jim.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know. I've read most of your book. I didn't get to finish it. We just got it Friday, late day Friday. But I was like, we are doppelgangers. We have the same exact schedule. When you were saying your schedule in the book, I was like, this is exactly my schedule.
We might have to do it like a tech support group.
There should be a wife tech support group because I find so many similarities with lifestyles. I was talking to Fitzsimmons about it, and he was like, well, yeah, I'm a comic. I stay out until midnight. It's not like I'm out whoring and drinking. I'm just working.
Going to work.
Yeah. And I know Jim is one of the few guys that at the level he's at, which, I think everyone knows, but I will reiterate, which is huge theaters, multiple shows, nonstop movies, nonstop. Everyone wants a piece of Jim, and he's still at the clubs at night. He still goes out and does sets. And
weekends, remember, are Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can't, it's not like everyone's like, how's your weekend?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like way busier than my week.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just like nervous about having this on. I have to put it on air. Oh, it's on airplane. Okay, I was smart. Okay, sorry. I just was afraid I was going to start getting all this like help messages. That tends to happen when I leave.
Yeah. So you get up early.
Yes. So because I have kids at different schools, I don't know if you have that as well.
Yes, we do.
So that's really complicated. And our schools are on different sides of the city just to make things fun. But they're great schools, right? So you do that. So we get up at 6. We have to leave by 7. So even though that sounds like a lot of time, it's not with 5 kids. It's a mad dash. And it's a really kind of challenging time because everyone is really tired in the morning.
Breakfast? Do you make the same breakfast for everyone? Or does everyone fend for themselves?
You have to understand, I kind of changed a lot about my parenting after this experience because I was doing everything or having like a babysitter or a nanny or somebody doing everything for the kids because it's a lot easier and it's a lot more efficient. But after I got removed from the situation, I kind of discovered that I was robbing them of their power by doing that.
Wow.
So as everyone knows, if you have like a messy playroom, it's way easier to pick up all the Legos yourself and than to like have a conversation with the kids about picking up the Legos, and they're going to leave some and they're going to mix them with the other toy,
Right.
And so I kind of in the past had given this kind of organization and keeping everything together and maintaining, like, even though we have 5 kids, we're still going to survive and have, and have this, relatively like clean house. And I put that kind of above really taking care of my kids in terms of taking care of them so that they will be able to take care of themselves someday.
That's really. Go ahead.
Oh, yes.
What?
No, that's LeeAnn's. LeeAnn is the same way, and she didn't have to go through. I want to talk about, obviously why you're here is your book. I want to talk about that, but I kind of want to know who you are before that, because I don't think this, from what it sounds like, Jim, this moment doesn't define you. Who you are throughout the experiences you had in here, I find really fascinating. And like I said, I'm a horrible reader, so I read bits and pieces. But when you got the news that you did have a tumor and the calmness that came over you, I kind of was like, okay. Because I think everyone, including yourself, wonders what happens if something happens horribly to me. How will I react in that moment? So I wanted to know what kind of person you were before that. Before we get to that moment,
Okay.
I'm curious about, like, where did you grow up? How many brothers and sisters do you have? When did you find faith? I know you're a faithful person, but were you always that person? Drugs and alcohol. How did you meet Jim? But within like 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So, I'm going to abort mission on the average day and go to a little history.
Perfect.
Okay. So, essentially, I grew up as the eldest of 9 children.
Oh my God.
And I had a father who worked 3 jobs, and my mother worked a million more jobs, but in the home, right? So
Yeah.
I think that my mom was working all the time. And also she was like nursing a baby and being pregnant my whole life. So being the oldest. And so therefore, at a certain point when I hit, 13, I realized that if I wanted to have a clean pair of jeans to wear to school, I had to figure out a way to do it myself.
It's interesting.
Right. So there was not like any neglect going on, but it was like with that many kids, I'm sure you had the big Catholic family that had like multiple kids.
My mom's one of 9. I'm one of 3, but I do know what you're talking about. That kind of self-sufficiency that a big family requires, especially on the middle children. But did you have, as the eldest, did you have expectations that you were held up to, like a standard? Did your father say, "This is my diamond"? Did you, or were you kind of left to your own devices?
I kind of took over.
Really?
Right. Yeah. I kind of took over. And in positive ways and in negative ways. So, like I said, because I was the oldest, I felt kind of entitled to, what if my life was an only child? And why do you keep having all these kids? Mm-hmm. So I looked at other families and I saw that they had more stuff than we did, better cars, and I was jealous of having I thought having a lot of kids was like the stupidest thing in the whole world. I was like, why would anyone do that?
Just by design, I don't think it ever dawned on me, but you have to grow up well below middle class when you have 9 kids, because you just can't give everyone a brand new car. You can't buy brand new jeans for everyone at the beginning of every year. Everything's going to be a hand-me-down. Everything's always, wow, I never saw it that way.
And so, look, this is going to become positive. But at the time, when I was like 13, I was like, wow, this really sucks to have this big family, because I don't have what other people have. So I had to kind of carve my way through surviving like that era in middle school where everyone's like, what kind of shoes are you wearing? And that kind of stuff. And I didn't really have the stuff that other kids had. Wow. So I became very caught up in kind of appearances. This is very confessional, what I'm telling you right now, because it's the root of what happened to me as an adult. I was still a good person and a good friend and everything like that. But now I see that my sense of cleaning and organizing and making lists and making sure that all my siblings looked good and had, I cut their hair. I did their laundry. I was very kind of tyrannical as the oldest.
Yeah.
And I think that there's probably still a little bit of like resentment, from my brothers and sisters, even now, of the way that I was kind of like, you have to wear this to school. Because my mom was very like free to be you and me. Like she was very like, it doesn't matter. People are more important than things.
Pennsylvania?
Wisconsin.
Oh, of course it's Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Yeah. And my mom is like this incredible person. Our lives were filled with storytelling and adventures. We'd go to the park and she'd make up all these characters and stories. She was absolutely this creative and very spiritual, very like God is, the angels are here, and, just really grounded us in a very sense of higher purpose. But my rebellious part was like, she's crazy. She doesn't, understand that I have to like have the right haircut and the right clothes at school. Like those things do matter to me. And so I kind of became very focused on outward appearances. Now, meanwhile, my dad, who was not around as much because he was working all the time, is like a very secular intellectual type. Like he taught film, he was a journalist, a writer, very, Catholic, but not very Catholic, very secular, but Catholic, went to mass with us, but was quiet about it.
Yeah.
Whereas my mom was like, oh, praise the Lord. Like she was very like, really out there with it. And so when I grew up, I found myself being like the little mother, but I was more of like a mommy dearest mother than my mom. I was more, but with
really fascinating.
But through the instrument of a 13-year-old kid, right? So
it's something you could control, probably.
Yes.
When things felt out of control, and if you felt this lack for appearances, that's something you could control,
right? So that's what exactly what I'm getting at is that in order for me to feel in control of my life, I needed things to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. My house had to be clean, and then it turned into my apartment had to be clean. And then I, wound up having 5 kids, and I was like, but we're still going to get like white furniture. So I would just like kind of torture myself into like maintaining this kind of perfectionist ways. And what happened when I left working outside of the home, I was executive producing our TV show. Yeah. And I looked at season 3, and I looked at the fact that my oldest daughter was about to turn 13, and she was changing, and all of a sudden, like, she was becoming a young woman, and I felt like I'm gonna miss this because I can't believe that means I have her for like 4 more years in the house. Like she was going.
Well,
it was
I feel like that right now.
It's like at that cusp where that little kid time seems like it takes forever, and then all of a sudden they're like, wearing your clothes, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And so I told Jim, if you're going to do season 3, you're going to need another showrunner because I can't do this. It's I've missed too many recitals. Like May is like everyone's performing, and I have 2 birthdays.
Recitals. You got 5 recitals.
Yeah, and I was in situations before where I couldn't leave the set, and I would book like shoots around like a extended lunch with a camera move, so it would be a long break, and I would try to go to like the middle school spring concert, and then I would get stuck in traffic on the FDR in New York, and then I would miss the concert, and I miss the shooting, and I was just like really torn up inside.
So stressful.
Very stressful. So ultimately, Jim decided that he didn't want, since the show was loosely based on our life in New York with 5 kids and kind of a, this being like this Catholic family, but with all these diverse friends. And, it was a very, to me, it was like a labor of love. That show was the most like creatively fulfilling thing I've ever done and I write for Jim, I produce for Jim, I direct his things, I do a lot of stuff, which is amazing. But in the show, it was like a character named Jeannie Gaffigan, my perspective. Like it was a much more of an equal partnership than me like being like, Jim, if you had a good tag you could use, and then maybe 9 out of 10 he uses it. So I do write with Jim, but he is Jim. I say a PhD in Jim Gaffigan. I understand his point of view and I can write for him, but it's hard to get in there. I mean, it's like, I'm sure that you have a lot of say in do this, don't do that. But at a certain point, it's like the stand-up comedian, it's his show.
Yeah, totally.
So I can help and I can do all the bells and whistles and the, I can be in the edit for the specials and I can, choose what the backdrop is and what theater it's going to be at and have a lot of input on it, but it's his voice, his point of view. And I completely honor and respect that. But when we did the TV show, it was like about the kids, about the family. She had stories, he had stories, she had friends, he had friends. And it was a real wonderful partnership that we had on that show. So for me to walk away from it for family was a very big step, but it was also like obviously the right thing to do.
100%, yeah.
And also at the same time, I had kids that were in nursery and pre-K. And I remember having a call from a pre-K teacher being like, Michael is, was picking out colors today and we want to get him evaluated for dyslexia. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm trying to find out if I can get this prison lit. Like I couldn't do both. And then I would hang up and be like, did you just say dyslexia?
Yeah.
At age 3? I mean, what? And I was like, I can't. And I know that's a really like kind of anti-feminist thing to say, but for me, showrunner and 5 kids, it was like, I was like, I'm doing this right now. Everyone's alive. Everyone's thriving. Show's good. But I can't envision maintaining this.
Yeah.
So we made a decision. We called the network and we were like, we have to talk. We have to think about our family and moving out of this situation, which was really difficult. But then immediately, like the next special started and whatever, there was still like a lot of work going on. So I moved our office to our home. So it's like kind of like how you have this set up. It's not in the home, but it's like, imagine on the same floor of our apartment building, there's another apartment, a studio that has a door that goes into our apartment. So it's like an exit to the outside.
Right.
Oh, wow.
I mean, still, there's going to be, if we were doing this at my house, there'd be kids running through.
Right.
They'd burst in unless we lock the door. Like they know, they just gravitate to where,
Mine just stand out there and look at me with these eyes like, you're letting my childhood go by. Are you really going to talk to Nate Bargatze while I sit here and by myself and you're like, hey, I got to wrap the podcast up. My daughters are standing outside staring at me.
You used to have a window, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
you can just be like, at least they can see that you're in there. We have like the door, right?
Yeah.
But so anyway, how this relates back to the sense of control and all this stuff. So I'm like, I am going to be the perfect mother. I'm going to take.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be on top of you about the microphone.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Okay. I was like, I'm going to take them to school every day. I'm going to join both PTAs. I'm going to still produce the shows at home. I'm going to have a clean house, right? I'm going to cook. I'm going to, bake. And, this happened.
So right when you decide to pump the brakes and allow yourself to be the mom where you're involved with everything, that's when this happened?
About 6 months later. So we had hiatus during the summer. Usually doing the show, it would be a lot of marketing meetings, a lot of post stuff, but everything would be in the can. And then we'd start the writing season in the fall. So the summer that we said we're not doing season 3, the fall started and we started doing other things other than the show. Like, doing a special, doing a tour.
Probably another book, I'm assuming.
Food of Love Story was the last book that we did.
Okay.
And Jim did a show in London over Christmas break, and we all went. And on the plane ride home, I put the noise canceling headphones on, and I thought one of the headphones was broken. So I was having problems hearing the movie, and I went to go help a kid, and I came back and the headphones had gotten twisted the other way. So I put them on, and then I realized it wasn't the headphones because both of them, it was my ear. So it's like I literally couldn't hear out of my ear. Like I just snapped my fingers so anyone can hear that weird noise. That's what happened. And I was snapping my fingers next to my ear. And I'm like, that's weird, Now,
are you set up to be a hypochondriac?
Nope.
So you're someone who just immediately goes, probably an ear infection. Probably the air.
I was like, I probably stood too close to the speaker at the Chili Peppers concert in 2000. I just compartmentalized everything. I was like, well, I guess, it's like, you're going to need reading glasses, you're going to need hearing aid, like stuff starts to go. Like I just explained everything away. And also,
because you're too busy, right?
Because you're too busy.
Yeah.
And also what you have to understand about me is that, and I'm not going to put this on every busy mom, but let's just pretend that it could apply to other people that I've seen. In my world, maybe when I was single, if I had something, I'd be like, oh, I have to go to the doctor. I might have a kidney infection because I had like a pain in my back.
Yeah.
But when you have a bunch of little ones to juggle, and it's like, you just don't really go for yourself. Like it's hard, you don't really be like, I'm having spa day, or I'm going to the doctor just to randomly, I feel weird. You're like, I'll get over it.
Yeah.
Mom is sick, but you don't get to stay in bed all day.
You just push through because you have to.
Because you have to.
You have to, yeah.
So on the one of the final episodes of the show that we shot, I'm just going back in time for a minute just to give you some context of who I am. I sprained my foot, and we had like 52 scenes to shoot, and I was directing. And there is also something like being a female director and having all the kids and all this stuff. You feel like you have to prove yourself extra hard. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to, tell anyone about my foot. But at a certain point, it was like, why is Jeannie hopping? Like I was there. We had a beach, we had stairs, like it was on location.
Yeah,
like
none of this. This was just to perspective. This was a single camera shoot. Everything was so, and there were a lot of locations all throughout New York and out of New York. So
yes,
it was. Yeah, it was. I watched.
It's like a film shoot, right?
It was like a film. Yeah. And this particular episode, there was I think one scene that we shot in this episode that was in the studio, in the apartment, in the studio in New York, which was like Jim reading a story to the kids in bed. But the story was his childhood. So it was a period episode that took place in the 70s.
I saw this
everything.
Episode.
And we shot it out in Long Island. It's supposed to be like, Illinois in the 70s.
Yeah.
So it was very complex shooting. And then there was a whole series at the end with like flashbacks back to the beginning of time, which required a lot more locations. And this was my kind of pinnacle. I was directing it. I had been prepping while I'd been doing the whole season. And I wanted it to succeed because you only have 22 minutes to tell like a big story.
Yeah.
So, and I was very passionate about this episode because it was about, Jim's childhood, and he played his father in it. And my son, Jack, played young Jim.
They look alike.
Yes.
They look, I think, did Jim just post a picture of the two of them?
That's Patrick.
That's Patrick. They look like fucking twins.
I know.
Holy shit.
It's crazy. So, and then Jim, he looks like we put a fat pad on him and did white hair and the glasses, and he looked exactly like the pictures of his father who passed away before I even met Jim.
Yeah.
So there were people in his family being like, it was like back from the dead.
Crazy.
So it was a really cool thing where I had all these objects from his childhood in little Easter eggs, and it was like spraining my foot was just not an option. So I got an assistant to go get some crutches from the props. I didn't go to the doctor.
Yeah.
So just to put this in context, had I not left the show, I never would have gone to the doctor about the hearing loss.
Right.
And
you just would have been pushed through.
So about a month later, I was at a well child visit at my pediatrician's office, and she was talking to me, and I turned my head. And she said, what was wrong with your ear? And I said, oh, I just can't hear out of it. And she's like, how long has that been happening? And I'm like, well, I just figured, the eyes go, the ears go. She was like, no, that's not what happens. And I just felt like an idiot. And she was like, you have to take care of yourself because you're going to be no good to anybody.
Right.
And she's like, writes me a referral. And it's like, I was just like, I kind of ignored it because I didn't really need it that much. I mean, it was like I was turning my head this way.
The eyes go, the ears go.
Yeah. It
You
just
have
starts to go.
diabetes. Oh, what?
So I went to an ENT. They couldn't find anything wrong with my ear. Put me on a steroid. Went away for a month. Did some, Flonase and whatever they said to do. Came back, followed up, which is huge because if I was doing the show, I never would have had appointment times.
Mm-hmm.
And the ENT was like, sometimes there's something in there, like on your audio nerve, oral neuroma or something it's called, that kind of block. I can't see it, but we need an MRI. So I'm like, oh, another day, another dollar, another MRI. So eventually I go get the MRI and it was immediately clear that something was extremely wrong because I was at a radiology center and the radiologist was like, oh, rule out MRI for hearing loss, whatever, and put me in the tube. And when I came out, he was like looking at a ghost. And they can't say anything. So I'm like, what? And he's like, your doctor will call you.
Can I tell you? I one time had like a chest infection and they did a chest x-ray of me. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And I said to the guy, how's it look? And he goes, I can't tell you anything. And he's like, what? And he's like, your doctor will call you. And I had such a panic attack that I convinced myself I had lung cancer. And I melted down so bad. And then they just called. They never even returned. I was supposed to take the x-rays to the doctor and I just left. So it took like 3 weeks for them to call me. For 3 weeks, I thought I was fucking dying. But that moment, I do that even now. Like, have you ever had a throat scope?
No.
Throat scope, they've got a camera on the thing that goes down your throat. It is the most terrifying thing because if they're going to see cancer, you're going to see it in their eyes because they're staring at you. And I was just, I said to the lady, so if you see something like cancer, like, are you prepared for what look you're going to give off? And she was like, I don't know what you're saying. And I was like, have you just been giving looks of terror in people's faces? Like, oh, this is fucking bad. So you witnessed that.
And
that is one of my
they're
biggest
trained
fears.
To not do that. But that's why I was so freaked out because it was obvious that the guy was trying to hide something. And it's like, I'm sure he had a medical poker face normally, but, and then of course I was like, I'm being paranoid. But I went out to the waiting room and they're like, your doctor will call you. And then I'm like, and then I'm sitting there because you just do what they say. And I'm sitting there for like 20 minutes and I'm like, what do you mean my doctor will call me? Like, he told me that he was going to follow up with me in 2 weeks. And now they're saying the doctor will call me. So I went up to the lady at the reception. I'm like, my doctor's not here. This is a random radiology center. He's in Midtown. Like, who said that he was supposed to call me? And I got really argumentative because I'm just like, why would they tell me to stay here? Who's going to come here? So I called Jim and he didn't even know I was getting an MRI. Like, that's how busy we were. And I'm just like, yeah, I just got an MRI and they won't let me leave. And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, do you want me to come there? I'm like, no, I'm leaving because they're not telling me why I'm here.
Oh my
There's
God.
no doctor here.
The only reason I can do this podcast right now is because you're here. Obviously because you're here. But like the thing I keep hanging my hat on is you're alive. Like,
so it's a happy ending.
Yeah, but like I keep going, you're going through all the things that keep me up at night and you're still here. So like, that's the thing I keep hanging my hat on.
And actually when just jumping ahead a little bit, when I did find out something was wrong with me, all I wanted to do was talk to someone like me. That's all I wanted to do. I'm like,
right.
is anyone walking around that could I read a book? But I mean, I really feel like
read a book. Yeah.
I was like, could someone like write a book about I don't care if I do a different path, but
A survivor's guide, sort of.
yeah, or like, this is how I did it,
Right.
Yeah.
or I'm cognizant enough to write a book after I had a brain tumor. So now at this point in the story, there's no tumor, I have no idea what's going on. So I leave and I go back and I told Jim, And Jim, we were, ironically, we were trying to make a documentary about making a comedy special with no material, because we had just wrapped a special in, let's say, December. Then we went on tour and did some of this material in London, and then made up some stuff about London. And Jim was like, I got 15 new minutes. And then he's like, we're gonna book a theater for the next special. And I was like, no, we can't do that. We have no material. And he's like, that's gonna be our quest, is we're gonna book it with no material, and then we're gonna write the material. Like this. I was like, oh, okay. So this is where we were at. So I come back from the doctor. I'm like, they're filming a documentary about, well, this is some of the ways that we're going to try to come up with the material. Like it was a great idea for a documentary. So, but at this point, I'm like, you guys, we had our assistant Sky at the time was in our office. And I was just like, there's something wrong with me. And I'm never the one to say that, but I feel really bad about what just happened. And Jim was kind of like, I'm sure it's nothing. Now, later, he told me he was also afraid, but what happens in a couple is when one of you is losing it, the other one's got to hold it together.
Yes, true.
It's like, I call it good cop, hysterical cop.
Oh, we call it
Bert and LeeAnn.
Yeah. I've never once held it together.
But if LeeAnn lost it,
I'd hire someone to hold it together.
you'd hire someone to hold it together.
I can't. I'm not.
Normally, if she ever does lose it, some instinct would kick in.
I pray to God that there's an instinct that I have not seen
It's a couple
in me
survival instinct. Okay, well, I pray to God it doesn't happen to you, but I mark my words, you're going to find your inner calm in that moment if she falls apart.
Or
From your mouth to God's ears, lady. We'll see.
I don't see it happening right now, but if it does.
I told someone the other day I threw up in the sink, and LeeAnn cleaned the vomit out of the sink for me. I was sick. And they said, wow, what if LeeAnn threw up in the sink? I go, then she would have to clean her vomit out of the sink for her, because I just can't do that. I can't do that.
I mean, I can totally relate to that story.
I'm like, I am a, So you tell Jim something's wrong.
And he says it's not, he doesn't say don't be paranoid, but he's like, I'm sure it's going to be okay, but there's no use in fretting about it until the doctor calls you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we start working on this scene. Then I'm like, doctor's calling. So I answer the phone. It's the ENT. And he goes, hi, I'm looking at your report here. I just want to let you know that you have a large mass in your brain. And I'm like, what?
That matter of fact, they say it?
Yeah, I mean, they have to. What are they going to do? Be like, you have a mass in your brain. They have
They don't
to
say something like, are you sitting down? Or
nope.
just.
Even though that's how I opened with my parents.
Really?
I was like, because I was like literally afraid that my parents were going to faint when I told them that I had a brain tumor. Because I thought, what if my kid? That was a really weird thing telling my parents, because being a parent, like I would much rather be sick than have one of my kids sick.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
right?
It's the reason I can snorkel with my kids. If I'm snorkeling by myself, I'm afraid of sharks. But if I'm snorkeling with my kids, I know very well, if a shark shows up, I have one mission, and that is to get attacked while my kids get in the boat. And for some reason, that relaxes me. Knowing that I'm comfortable defending them from sharks. I don't know why, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. So the doctor is like, you have a mass growing in your brain. And I'm like, okay. I mean, all I can say was, okay. Well. And so he said, and it's out of my wheelhouse now. So I'm going to give you some neurosurgeons to call. And he said, normally, a neurologist would send you to a neurosurgeon, but I can tell that you'd probably need to speak to a neurosurgeon because, you don't need a neurologist because the neurologist will just send you to a neurosurgeon. So I was like, okay. And then he said, I want you to know that a lot of times they just watch these things and people live with them. And I relaxed a little bit. I'm like, well, it can't be that bad. And he said, but, I can't
that is
really
not
go.
your case. This is fucking
No, he's
big.
saying, I can't say what they're going to tell you.
He's right now saying, I'm serving shit sandwiches, but I've served them before and people, I don't mind them. I don't know if you're going to mind them, but like, he's just trying to like
soften
yes.
it. Yeah.
And then, so I said, okay, I know you can't tell me what's going to happen, but that's like why I'm waiting for the call. Like, so I'm like, what would you imagine that the neurosurgeon is going to do or tell me to do? And he said, well, I would imagine that they would probably resect it or a part of it. And I said, what does resect mean? And he said, remove. And I said, but it's inside my brain, is what you're saying. And he's like, yeah. So at that moment, I was like, okay, I'm going to have brain surgery. Now that was, it wasn't an immediate connection, because also sometimes you think there's something in your body and they can't get it out.
Right.
Like, yeah, how do you get into my brain?
Right. But also, like, you kind of do want it out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of positive because it's like action. So I'm just like, okay, so I needed some kind of plan to, like, not just be like, well, you got a mass growing in your brain. See ya. So I called these, and I also repeated everything he said. I was like, so what you're saying is I have a mass in my brain, because Jim's there and he's not on speakerphone. So, and Jim just I mean, he is
whiter
white.
than he is.
Yeah. Turned translucent. And so I hung up and I said, okay, here's the thing. We have to go back to the radiology center and get the scans. We have to buy them because they have them there and they can give you a copy for like $20 or something. And then we have to take them to a neurosurgeon. And I need to call and make an appointment. So Jim's like, do you want me to call and make an appointment?
Yes, Jim.
So,
by the way, right now I'm putting all of this, as most listeners are, I'm imagining, in their own relationship. And already I go, LeeAnn, I need you to take care of this. The whole time you're doing this, I'm like, LeeAnn, you're going to get me I'm going to go lay down.
But he knew that I would want to call.
That that's who you are.
He's like, do you want to call? Like, he wanted to call, but he was like, would you like to be the one to call to make the appointments? Because he knows me. I make all the appointments.
Yeah.
I mean, he takes care of his stuff, but I do running the whole thing, right? So, I mean, I don't even pack him. He packs himself. Like, I'm not going to say that I like pack Jim but he is like, I've maintained it so he can live a bachelor's life a little bit,
most of comics' wives have, in a fun, kind of crazy.
And I think that's how we relate to each other. Like, I immediately get along with every comedian's wife that I meet, because it's like, we're like,
yeah,
me too.
You're like sister wives.
Hashtag me too.
Sister wives.
But with like 3 O's. So it doesn't, compete with the other movement. So anyway, so I call, we get the brain scans. We can't open them. We call the neurosurgeons. They're like medical. So we tried. We found first of all, there's no more disk drives in computers, by the way, which you forget about until you need one. So then I have an external disk drive. It's just numbers. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I want to see it.
You wanted to see it.
And so I called the neurosurgeons, hoping I could just show up right away and whatever. So they were like, it was like, I don't know, April 15th or something. And they're like, okay, we have an opening May 16th.
I can't do that.
And they were like, are you a new patient? I'm like, yeah, I just called you and said that I just have a mass in my brain. I have no idea what's going on.
I need to see you tomorrow, guys.
So then I take the appointment and then I call the other guy. It's the same office, same receptionist. I'm like, does the other guy have an earlier appointment? And they had it like May 8th. So I said, can I come in and see my scan? And they said, well, first of all, you can bring your scan to the appointment in May. And also, we need to see your report before I can make the appointment. I mean, it was so crazy. So I was like, okay. So then I'm like, Jim, I can't just like wait for 3 weeks to find out what. So, but I don't have a neurologist or a neurosurgeon. But my best friend from childhood grew up to be a neurologist. So I texted him. And he had helped me before because my dad had a stroke and he helped in the hospital in Milwaukee. He's a neurologist in Milwaukee. So I texted him and I'm like, hey, John, what's up? Anyway, I have a mass in my brain, need your help to help figure out what it is. So he's like, send me the scan. So Jim runs to FedEx, sends John overnights him the scan. So then we just kind of have to like keep it a secret because we're like, we don't know if it's small, if it's big. The guy said you can live with it. Like what? They said 3 months. I'm like, they didn't see the scan, but they saw the report. So the next morning, I drop off the kids at school. I'm, feeling pretty good. I want to talk to John. So John calls me. I'm figuring he's telling me he got the FedEx. Well, he had gotten it, early, went to the hospital, and he was like, Jeannie, this isn't good. He texts me a picture of the inside of my skull with what appears to be a pear. It looks like a pear.
Do you have a picture in the book?
Yeah, it's in the book.
That's one of the things.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
right
about
at
your
the
book
top.
Is that, and then I didn't put pictures in my book, but you put pictures.
Some of them are not placed where I put them in the manuscript. So it says,
Interesting.
it looks like this.
It's chapter 1.
I mean, it's hard to do the design lineup.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the intro chapter, not the introduction, but there's a prelude called The Pear, which kind of starts at the top of the story. And it has a photograph of...
In the pear?
It has the picture of what
Okay. Where am I?
There's a couple...
Here.
I don't
Where
know.
am I?
There's two... Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a side angle. And then there's one from the back later on in the book.
You can really tell that it looks like a pear.
Is that's it? That's at the... Oh, so it's not inside your brain. It's on the bottom of your brain?
It's in my brain stem. And it's inside my brain on the stem. So the brain stem, it's inside the brain.
I like the other picture better. Like you could really see it.
That's later. Let's see. That is like chapter. Okay, great. So anyway, I see that. That one you're looking for is the one I saw. That other one is really better in color because they blew up the tumor into that toxic green that I put on my cover. I colored the pears that color.
Yeah.
That was the color of the multicolored MRI.
I love this picture. That's Jim in the waiting.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Love that picture.
I know. I was like, did you get the MRI or did I? He was sleeping.
It's exhausting.
So your best friend from high school.
Yes. So
from grade
he
school.
said, go to the OR.
OR is
No. First, he said, you need to get in the OR,
What's
meaning
original room?
operating room.
Oh, the OR.
He said,
Did you hear me? I was like, at the Comedy Store? You want to go to the original room?
yes, and do a set and
Do
then
a
go to the
set
hospital.
And then go to the hospital.
So-
go to the OR.
Essentially, he was like, I am a neurologist. I would have you in the OR. And I said, I don't have a doctor yet. I had to meet them and interview them and all this stuff. He goes, we don't have time for that. So he's like, you need a plan. And I'm like, I don't have a plan. He was like, I go, give me a plan. He goes, okay, this is what I would do. Find the best neurosurgery department in New York City. Take your scan and go to the ER and with your scan and say, I have a brain tumor. I'm feeling, all the symptoms. I need to speak to a neurosurgeon immediately. And they're going to get you upstairs because they're not going to be able to deal with you in the ER.
Yeah.
They can't turn you away. That's what I would do.
Leanne, you're blocking her camera.
So I find, I'm on camera. I don't have any makeup on.
That's okay.
Okay. So essentially, here I was like pantomiming like I wasn't on camera. When I did this, I explained
Yeah, I know.
it.
I was like, wait, you do see the cameras, right?
No, I didn't see the camera.
Okay.
But I have a good excuse.
You see next to it is her brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's in the brain though. It's not like outside the
That's
brain
up,
stem.
up. It's up in your brain.
Yeah, that's all up in there, as they say. It's all up in my brain.
All up in there.
That.
So,
Fuck.
yeah. So that's what I did. I got in a cab with Jim and I went to the
What page is it on? Tell everybody the page.
Tell
Page
me.
83.
page 83 is what I saw that got me in the cab. And I felt like it was like, he was like, that area should not be blocked. That area is open for nerve signals and that thing is blocking it. And like,
Now,
he
had
was,
you noticed anything other than your hearing loss?
well, once I did the interview from neurosurgery and filled out all the forms and had the interview and stood on 1 foot and did that, it was like a DWI.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I got all this.
And I was like, who's doing those things? The lists are getting pulled over for drinking.
yeah.
I'm
Right.
I'm not staying on 1 foot. Like, when do I do that? Yeah. Oh, I have allergy headaches. I have migraines. But it's not migraines. It's I have a freaking brain tumor. It's like I was compartmentalizing all the symptoms of a brain tumor because I was afraid to get sick. So this is a lesson that I learned.
It's a huge lesson for everybody, especially moms, to you pack yourself so full every day that you don't give yourself space to pay attention to anything other than what's next on the list.
So telling this story, I know I sound like a complete idiot that I didn't care that I had hearing loss or headaches but it was compartmentalized. So it seemed like these little tiny annoyances.
Yeah.
And also not even the most paranoid hypochondriac, which you've basically admitted to being.
I am.
Would imagine that hearing loss immediately was a brain tumor.
He might.
I think I'd astound you with my hypochondria.
Okay.
I have convinced myself of everything at one point.
I wouldn't. If I had hearing loss, I would think I had some kind of like rampant ear infection. That's what I would think.
I mean, do you go to the doctor though? Or do you just
every
like
9
get
months.
paranoid?
Every
Yeah.
9 months.
Well, 9 months, it's not that often.
No, but the chatter that happens at home is definitely.
Do you go on WebMD?
No. The same reason I don't go on Tinder. I don't go on anything that like, Tinder's a bad example, but like when WebMD is for me is like, I had one run-in with a medical journal when I was 25, and it spun me into a spiral I never want to get to again.
I was going to say don't.
Never.
No.
Because
we don't.
I don't even look at the ads underneath articles where they're like, are your hands itchy?
Yeah.
You're having a stroke. Like, I don't even look at the pre-diabetic, congestive heart failure.
When he and I first started dating, he didn't have a doctor. And I was like, I think my doctor's perfect for you because she doesn't overreact to anything ever. Everything is like, most likely you're fine. And I was like, that's the doctor for you. Because anybody who's like, well, we should come in and check it out. Then he spends the next 48 hours waiting for the appointment, coming completely unraveled.
I'm coming unraveled a tad bit in this podcast. Like,
I apologize.
No.
But look, I'm alive.
But I keep saying you're alive, so I'm like,
you look amazing.
yeah, you
Thank
look
you.
fantastic. So okay, so you go in to the EOR. You say,
No, you go in the ER.
I'm
You go
on
to
the
the
way.
ER.
He told me to get into an OR, and I said, "How do I get in the OR?" He goes, "Through the ER, because you're not. If you don't have a doctor, you're going to need a doctor."
So you Google best neurosurgeon in New York.
Neurosurgery department, and it was Mount Sinai Hospital, really far away from where we live. But
Okay.
I was like, "We're going there."
So then this is all in the day, and you just get in a cab.
This is actually the next day because if you recall, I had to wait overnight for my friend who loves me, who grew up with me, who was like, I'm not a number, I'm not a new patient, he was like, I'll be honest with you, you can't you can't sit on this.
So then you get in the cab with Jim.
I get in the cab with Jim, and because I'm a rule follower and an organized person, like to a fault, I start covering the kids' pickups. I start calling, and I was like, who else do I have to call? And I called the ENT, and I said, could you cancel the appointments here I'm thinking about canceling appointments.
Yeah.
But also it was like,
God.
I'm not going to those guys in May.
No.
I'm already taking care of this myself. And so his assistant was like, I don't think you should go to the ER. Because it's like, why would you
I'm fucking losing my shit right now.
why would you go to an ER for a brain tumor? And I said, because I have a plan. That's why. So then the doctor calls me and he's like, listen, you don't need to go to the ER. I have friends at Mount Sinai. I'm a colleague. I'm going to call her. I'm going to get you in there, but it might be tomorrow or the next day. And I said, well, I'm still going on my plan.
I'm in a cab.
I'll still take that appointment, but right now I'm going to the ER. So he calls someone who's in Florida, who calls someone who's on vacation, who calls someone in neurosurgery. Moments later, my phone rings. I'm in the cab. Now, remember, I live downtown Manhattan. This is way up on 100 and whatever. And, the
East
FDR,
side, right?
East side, yeah. So, and 5th, actually. And hi, this is Leslie Schlachter from the neurosurgery department at Mount Sinai. I hear that you might need to see someone here. And I said, yes, I would love that. I've been actually expecting your call. I was in an office. I was very calm.
Yeah.
Like I started to get very calm about this
I'm
plan.
getting very antsy right
Listen,
now
I'm
because
gonna
I'm
calm
like
you down.
I feel like it's a thriller, and you're in the cab going, I'm on my way. We're gonna I'm like, no one can call fast enough right now.
And it was also a little bit of a mystery too, right? It was a mystery and a thriller for me right then because I really didn't know. I mean, I knew it was a tumor, but I didn't know if it was cancer. I didn't know if I was going to sneeze and have an aneurysm. I had no idea what was going on. So it was a thriller, and it was very thrilling, but in a bad way. But then all of a sudden, this person calls me, And I got this sense of like complete calmness because someone called me and I had been calling everyone. And she said, well, where do you live? And I said, I live downtown, but I'm about 3 blocks away from Mount Sinai right now. And she said, great, come on up to 8 West because Dr. Joshua Betterson is delayed in his surgery, doesn't see new patients, but he's like the top guy. So he could probably push you in the right direction.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question right now. You don't have to be honest. I'm basically asking you a question to tell you what kind of person I am. Did you at all say, I am Jim Gaffigan's wife?
Nope.
Do you realize how quickly I would be throwing around, it's the machine calling. It's Bert Kreischer. I have a Netflix special. I'm shooting another one in November.
I knew you were going to ask me that because I was treated like a VIP and I was not. They didn't know my name.
I know Jim
That's
Gaffigan.
amazing.
I know Jeannie Gaffigan. She had a tumor. Call Jeannie. She'll back me up.
I feel that's a really important part of the story because I didn't get any preferential treatment. And it was like, that's why I say it was faith and miracles because if it was because I was going, oh, listen, I don't want to be with the riffraff, that would be a different story. It was like literally I was person X.
This is me on the phone. This is a rich person's brain tumor, guys. This is not riffraff brain tumors.
Yeah.
I think I'm like, I've never been more invested in a moment where and I know you lived it, but I just am like, so I feel like I've placed myself. Do you remember that movie with George Clooney and Julia Roberts, One Fine Day?
Never seen it.
No, I never saw it.
Never mind. I guess I didn't either. I was the only chick in this room. All right, keep going. So she goes.
So I'm like, great, see you in a few minutes. And I walk in, like you'd wait longer at like a clinic for a blood test for a flu shot at Walgreens. I walked in to the top guy's office. They didn't see if I had insurance. They didn't know my name because he had only a few minutes and some friend of a friend of a friend because my ENT got invested in the story because I was going to an ER with a brain tumor and he thought I was insane and he thought some like sleep deprived intern was going to cut my head open with a rusty butter knife. So anyway, I waltz into this office with this big mahogany desk, like the head of the surgery department. He pops in my scan. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, this is what I would do.
You're like, fucking do it. I got nothing but I canceled the kids are getting picked up by my aunt. Do it. Let's get it done.
Yeah. And that was Jim.
By the way, I'm like fucking.
That was Jim. So he said, this is what I would do. I would have you in here all day for scanning tomorrow. We'd take multiple pictures of your brain. I'd get you on the schedule for Monday. Because I guess they don't do surgery on weekends. I don't know. And then we're going to create a virtual reality like vision of your brain. So I can, like, it's all new technology. Like 2 years ago, this would not, like, I would not be standing here. Or if I was, I'd be in a, when you learn, like in the book, like what your cranial nerves do, it's basically like everything. Like, that part, you have a brain and you have a body, and then you have a connection between the two. That's your brainstem.
Right.
That's where the tumor was.
Yeah.
So basically, I was like, am I going to live? And he's like, I think you're going to live. But he was like, I want to tell you what I'm concerned about. Your facial nerve is right in the middle of this. Your breathing and swallowing, your movement. Like, it was a lot of complications could come about. So, but he's like, I think you're going to live. And I was like, that's all I need to know. I don't care if I'm a paralyzed face. I mean, I could be a head in a jar if I can raise my kids. Like, that's what I was just like, if I can be alive. I mean, my face, whatever, I already have a husband, it's not like I don't need to like go out and pick people up. I'll be the mom with the paralyzed face,
Right?
There's one in every community.
No, seriously, you cannot spook my mom. Try.
Right. I know. How's your mom feeling today? Happy, sad? Yeah. So that's like really horrible but then again, if I had the paralyzed face, I'd be making the same joke because that's the way we coped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that's what happened. And I had amazing weekend with my family. I didn't make a will.
Easter weekend, right?
It was Easter weekend.
You just were like,
I was
guys,
like, carpe diem.
this is out of my control.
Yeah. I was
Monday
like, all
we
right,
do
God.
It, you know?
And the funny thing was also when I was leaving, Leslie said, I understand if this is very serious, if you want to get a second opinion. And I was like, nope. I'm like, what are the odds? Because I call it the parting of the Red Sea. It was literally like I was in my house in limbo with no plan. And then the sea parted and I walked into the head of the department who doesn't see new patients. Like he's referred, like he's the guy, if like the cop gets shot in the brain, he's the guy who gets the bullet out. You know, he's like, he's the top guy. He later learned that, Jim's a really famous comedian.
I would have charged double if I had known who I was cutting.
Well, I mean, of course we're doing all the fundraisers and all that stuff too, but I mean, we're like, gladly, let's just save some lives.
So you have a great weekend with your family. Do you tell the kids?
Yeah, we tell the kids on Sunday.
And your kids at that time are ages 13?
Almost 13. 11, 7, 5, and 6. So, I mean, it's like I have a switch in May where my 2 girls have birthdays in May. So I have a cusp 8-year-old and a cusp 13-year-old. Mm-hmm. They're just a little bit before their birthday. And I had the 2 oldest first. We told them exactly what was going on. We said I wasn't going to die, but I was going to be in the hospital for a little while. With the little ones, we made it more like, you know how when you have bad tonsils and you have to go to it was like much more like that. And
something they could handle.
Yeah.
So they could process.
And Patrick was like, are you going to get a toy out of the treasure chest?
Oh, how cute.
And somehow that made him feel better about the whole thing. Yeah. Because my Michael is like, you have to hold him down to get a shot. He's terrified of needles. And, he was like, do you think you might get a shot?
Jack's the youngest.
No, Jack was the one who's 11. Right now he's 13.
Okay.
Michael was at the time 6, and Patrick was 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah. Patrick's the one that makes me laugh really hard.
Patrick looks like mini-me Jim.
Yeah.
And I mean, they all look like him, but Patrick is like it's insane. Patrick looks like the ventriloquist puppet of Jim. Yeah. But he was so sweet. But Michael, who was the middle boy, we really had to be like, he was like, do you think you might get a shot when you get brain surgery? He was more worried about the shot.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't think it's going to hurt that much, Michael. I really don't think it's going to hurt. Like, so we tailored it. And it was actually harder to tell my parents than it was to tell my kids.
What was the what time was your surgery?
My actual brain surgery was on Tuesday morning.
Oh, really?
The Monday procedure was called an embolization, where they take a do you want to hear this?
I'm nervous right now that you asked, do I want to hear this?
They take like a copper wire and thread it through your femoral artery, up through all your circulatory system, through your carotid arteries, into your brain tumor. And then they glue the blood vessels that are feeding the tumor shut so you don't like bleed out during the surgery. Because your tumor has now become part of your body. So it has vascular.
Yeah.
So, and actually that surgery was not successful. They were not able to do it. But because they found out that I had some weak carotid arteries, I had like a pre-existing condition that they found randomly of weak carotid arteries.
And so they're like, don't worry, we'll just do it old school.
They're just going to do it old school. But also what they did find out is that because I had that FMD, it's called Fibromuscular Dysplasia, which is amazing because they never would have found out that I had that if they hadn't done a high level imaging like that. I could have just, bungee jumped or done something that I can't do with weak, there's certain things you can't do.
What was the consequence of having a weak carotid artery? What does that mean?
It means you can't do like headstands in yoga and go on
because it can't withstand the pressure.
Yeah, it's
I
like
see.
weak. It's like bumpy walls inside your it's like a genetic, like a 1 in a zillion. It just, when you get this level of imaging, they're gonna find something.
Right,
it's like
right.
we all have some weird like
Yeah.
third urethra or something.
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
no one knows.
You've lived
because
with
you
your
don't-
whole life, so
right.
you don't know.
And it's like we're not all like perfect inside.
So you're laying in. So Tuesday night they're going in old school, and
But the carotid arteries are really important because this is a really important part of the story. Because if they had not found that out, the way that they were going to position my head during the surgery would have broken my yeah. So it was really good. So they were more concerned about the surgery. They were like, we don't know how we're going to put your head. Because the way we were going to angle your head, we have to now meet with the team and figure out how we're going to do the brain surgery. And at this point, I was looking forward to the brain surgery like it was my wedding
yeah,
or the
get
birth
it
of
out,
my child.
man. Get it out.
Like I was like, I am literally like 2 seconds away from sneezing and having like a stroke because I can't stop seeing that thing in my head and hearing it going ha ha ha.
do you wish you could find out the day it first showed up?
I do. I blame Jim for it too. I'm like,
could they tell you how long it had been there?
well, it could have been there growing as long as 10 years, like from
Wow.
a speck. Because here's why. I was so high functioning. I was like moving mountains in my life. And clearly it had to have been around for a few years. So if you think about what my last like 5 years were like,
Right.
they were really, really busy. And I was very high functioning and I wasn't incapacitated at all.
Right.
So and that's another reason why they realized that it probably was not cancer. He's like, there's an 80% chance it's not cancer. And here's why. It's so big. And where it is, if it had been cancer, the way
It was spreaded.
well, it would have spread, but it would have the tumor would have grown very quickly. And all those little nerves and stuff I would have been like,
It would have shot. Everything would have popped off really quick. You're
Right.
like hearing, function, done it. Okay.
yes. And so because it could have been 10 years from a speck and it just insidiously been growing a little by little. And then your nerves just find other ways to like
They
function.
adjust,
and
right?
And adjust around it. And from the looks of it, it was like all the nerves were like becoming part of this thing, which was also really hard about getting it out because now every little tiny thing, and they're like a hair, these nerves, controls something really important.
And it was enmeshed with the tumor. Right.
Enmeshed.
Mhm, yeah. Oh, jeez.
But there was a thing, and I haven't brought this up anywhere else except with my doctor, where when he was operating, he saw a part of it that seemed to be emitting from my brain rather than on my brain. So normally when you get a tumor, there's like a part that you can get around to get out. But if the tumor is the thing, like if the brain, like with certain brain cancers, it grows in your brain. So you'd have to take out your brain.
Right. That
Right?
part
Yeah,
of your
yeah.
brain.
It's
yeah.
inoperable is what they're called. And so they have to use like just radiation and chemotherapy
Try to
to shrink it. But there was a moment when he really thought that it was completely in my brain. And then he found an area that he could
cut around.
cut around.
Wow.
So it's like even, but Jim really, this story for Jim starts when the day after the surgery, because the surgery was really successful. It was like a miracle successful. It was like nothing got cut. No nerves got cut. They knew I was going to have to recover for a long time because they were distended. The nerves were distended and compromised, and they had to heal.
Get them firing again so that you get full function.
Yeah, and it's like they're supposed to be like this, but now they're like this. So they have to kind of like the brainstem has to move back into place. I mean, it's a healing process.
What was the last thing you saw before you went in under?
Dr. Betterson's hands. His hands, and I touched them, and I asked God to bless his hands. I remember that. I was like, God,
Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
bless these hands. It's actually a funny thing that happens. I said, bless these hands, and I touched his hands, and his hands were vibrated, and I realized that his hands were already blessed because they had saved so many lives. I
Yeah.
felt them, and also he's a sculptor, and I felt like he might be something more than human. You know what I mean?
I'm half crying, half laughing right now.
I mean, I think that maybe
You're
like Rodin and Michelangelo are like demigods.
Right.
Like there's something more to these
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that can do things like that. And I felt it. Like, it wasn't like his hands were like vibrating because I asked God to bless them. His hands were magic.
Right.
They were, who could cut people? He's so like, he saves lives. Who can do that?
Not me.
There's people.
That's crazy.
So then I looked around the room, even though the last thing was his hands. There were just video screens all over the room. And I realized that my life was in the hands also of like technology. And if there was like a generator failure or something, like you think these things like
Jesus
so
Christ.
I was like also exactly. I was like, Jesus Christ, please bless these machines.
Let's not have the big blackout. Oh my God, I wonder how many people were in surgery when that blackout happened
They have
in New York.
generators, but there's a moment where it dips. And all those machines were
All right,
watching.
everybody freeze for a second. No one move. No one move. All right, keep surgery.
Those TVs and monitors, like people on them are on like the facial nerve. There's the facial nerve guy who's like, whoa, back off. Her face is going like crazy. Right?
Wow.
And he's like in this thing where there's a scope over the actual thing where he's looking at a fake picture of my brain and operating on my brain. Like, this is crazy technology.
And so much focus from that person.
Oh my God,
I mean,
he is a genius. I'm like, this man saved my life. And so I then asked God to bless the technology in the room. I was like, and then I was like, oh yeah, everyone thinks I'm crazy. And they're probably like, please put her out. And they're all gonna laugh behind my back. I had these weird thoughts about, because it's embarrassing to ask people in this like very like secular world that we're in to be like, I believe in magic. And
Who's your favorite saint?
Saint Joan of Arc.
Okay, Saint Jude.
Oh, the patron saint of lost causes.
Yeah, makes sense. I got Christopher around my neck too, but Saint Jude. I'm a big Saint Jude. I always say is like Eric Stoltz in Pulp Fiction. Where he's like, dude, don't bring her body to my house. Prank call her.
I mean, that's so amazing. That's such an amazing comparison. But I think that all comedians should have a St. Christopher medal.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I think that they should. I think all comedians' wives, regardless of what religion you are, because I mean, saints are for everyone. Put a St. Christopher medal in your husband's luggage or wife if you are a husband
Rich
of
Voss,
a family.
if you're Rich
Voss.
Wait, why? Is
Put
it
in Bonnie's
Travelers?
Safe travels, yeah.
It's safe travels, and it's a darn miracle that none of you guys have, or some of you have. I whenever I hear about someone being in an accident, I'm like, Jim is traveling,
He
constantly.
travels more.
Yeah,
constantly.
Yeah.
constantly.
And we just have to be every time. I mean, I have to stop taking it for granted. I just stop taking everything for granted. Like, that's the lesson. It's like every sip of water, every breath of air, it's a gift.
I'm totally torn right now because I'm going to the store tonight, and I want to have drinks, but I want my health to be first. So part of me feels like, after this story, I just want to go there and hang out and not smoke pot and drink and just go, no, I'm having water tonight, guys. And then go to sleep. I mean, it's like, it really makes you think of all the times you trash your body, how lucky you are to have a functioning body.
Well, but you know what? I do have to say, I don't want to say that I'm a monk. I mean, it's like when I was in the ER, in the ICU, which I'm getting to very quickly. I'm sorry I got on a tangent, but my sister, I couldn't eat anything for a long time, and I had feeding
I wish that would
tubes.
happen to LeeAnn. Keep going.
And my sister was like, "Can I get you anything?" And I was like, I would mouth because I didn't have any voice. And I was like, gin and tonics and chocolate ice cream. Because there's also that too.
Yeah.
There's the deprivation where you go, okay, I'm not eating gluten. Like, you have to have balance. Like, these things, like gin and tonics or whatever your drink is, your margarita, spicy margarita, whatever, that's a blessing too. It's just like abusing your body. No, bad. But
that's me.
I'm not proposing that everyone only drink water. I'm just saying, when you couldn't drink water, you realize like water is pretty damn good.
Water's so. By the way, I've been drinking water this whole time. I don't know why. This whole time I'm drinking water like crazy, going, "Come on, Bert, flood out all the tumors." Like I've been. By the way, these water bottles, not these. They aren't a sponsor, but water bottles have changed my life. Like I love ice cold water, ice cold water. So you come out. So you I want to know, how did you find out that it was a successful surgery?
I opened my eyes. I couldn't move because I was on drugs. Right? It's like when you're out of surgery, it's not like you're like, woo.
Right.
I opened my eyes and I felt my body. And I looked around.
You smiled like, oh, okay, we're working.
And the first thing, I simultaneously felt my body with this thought, which was, I'm me. Right? Because I remember thinking like, if I get like lobotomized or whatever could happen, it's my brain.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not me anymore.
Right.
So who am I? Am I a vegetable? Because you have to sign the thing that says if you're a vegetable, do you pull the plug?
Yeah.
So I have that. I write about that in the book too, because Jim and I had like 38 seconds to decide whether or not we just keep me around till, how long.
Oh, LeeAnn and I had this conversation too.
Like,
and I also get to have sex with her. Keep going.
What?
I'm just sprinkling
how romantic.
I'm just sprinkling in my panic in this. So 38 seconds to decide if you're a vegetable. You sign off. You wake up and you go, I'm me. What a great fucking thought.
Yeah, I was like, I think, therefore I am. I get it. I understand what that means. Like, I am. I'm me. I'm here. I can't believe it. I'm so happy.
I'm me.
Yeah.
I made it.
I made it.
I'm going to start saying that to myself.
And then people
when
keep
I wake
in, they're
up,
like,
I'm
hi.
me.
They're like, I think we got it all. And
That's
Who
incredible.
told you that? Who told you that?
Leslie, the PA, who's like the comedian's wife to the brain surgeon.
Yeah.
She like does all the coordination. It's like the parallels is incredible. So anyway, and Jim is there. Everyone's so happy and all this stuff. And I go back to sleep. And when I wake up, I'm intubated. There's machines going off. There's like crash teams. So apparently when they removed the breathing tube, I aspirated because my swallow and everything got all messed up. And I think that's the medical term.
What's
messed up.
mean? What's aspirated?
It means you inhale your saliva into your lungs.
Fuck, and then so you get pneumonia?
Double lung, hospital-borne strep pneumonia, which they can't resolve. They can't try all these antibiotics, and it's just getting worse. And so I'm in the ICU, and I'm getting very close to not being alive. And Jim, I find out later, because right now I'm just pissed because I'm like, I thought it was, no one told me.
Yeah.
He claims that he told me I had pneumonia, but I'm like, I didn't know why I was still in the ICU. I thought it was good. And then I couldn't talk. I had the stuff going up my nose. I had tubes all everywhere. I had the bonnet on. I saw a picture of it and it's like, I don't even recognize myself. And this is when Jim was like, I'm, going to retire from comedy. I found out that he was like, I can't leave ever again. Like, I have 5 kids. I don't know any teachers' names. I barely know what school they go to.
I don't know any teachers' names.
He's like, I don't know the teachers' names. He realized that he can't work anymore. Like, he doesn't have to, right?
Yeah.
He can,
He could retire. He could retire and do a show here and there. I mean, he could get through it, I guess, technically. But I'm sure it would. Oh, fuck me. And
he was calling people that have lost their wives, like people in your peer group, right? So he was, it was close. So it's not the brain surgery that was, he was most traumatized by the aftermath.
Yeah.
And all the feeding tubes and all the, the tracheotomy and everything that I eventually had to get so I could get out of the hospital, because when you're in the hospital, you get really, really sick. It's not like getting pneumonia and going to the hospital and having pneumonia. When it's hospital born, it's the worst, because the worst crap is floating around in the hospital.
My buddy was a producer on my show Trip Flip, and he got I don't think that's how it happened. But he got pneumonia and they gave him medication and it killed him. The medication killed. I don't know. That's not a good parallel story. But
no, but it's
hospital pneumonia is the bad
and
one.
Staph infections. You know, anything that it's like you get blood infections in the hospital because there's
My
just
dad got that. My dad got a blood infection in the hospital. Fuck. Why is this okay?
So the moral is keep yourself out of the
Yeah,
hospital.
keep yourself out of the
and
hospital.
they were like, and if you're in there, they're like, get out. So they started looking at things that were keeping me in. That's why I got the tracheotomy.
Is that what's going on right now?
No, right. This is a surgery I had of my vocal cord because that's the last. I still have a paralyzed left vocal cord. So I recently had a surgery called a type 1 thyroplasty to put an implant in order to give me my voice back. So my left vocal cord and my right vocal cord are now banded together to like function as one because that's like usually they function independently and it strengthens my ability to swallow and all this stuff. So eventually I'm hoping to get my full voice back and I may have to have another surgery, but I can't complain. These are inpatient surgeries. So, but no, my tracheostomy actually was down here. And
can I see it?
well, no, because I got the scar revised. So it was like kind of puckered in. It looked like an innie belly button.
Mm-hmm.
So they released the skin, and so it kind of blends in with the wrinkles and the Irish wrinkles in the neck. You know,
Yep.
the
Where's your
rings
scar
and the
from
tree.
on your head? Do you have a scar on your head from the surgery?
It's back. It's in my hair.
In your hair?
Yeah, it's in my hair.
Did they shave? You shaved your head.
They shaved under my hair, which is,
that's cool.
I mean, this Dr. Betterson, it's like he was thinking about the future.
Right.
I was like, shave my hair. He was concerned about giving me feeding tubes and tracheostomies because he didn't want to like give me scars. And I was like, dude, I don't care. I'm not a bikini model. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't
Just get it out, right?
Right. Because the endotracheal, no. But there's some kind of tube that goes up your nose and down your throat. So that's the camera I've had. You had the camera down the throat. I had it up the nose and down.
No, I had it down the nose.
Okay, that's
It
that. I
goes up
have
the
had
nose.
that
Yeah,
many times. It's and they squirt that.
Novocaine.
Yeah.
That like lidocaine.
Yeah.
They just go.
Yeah, and then you taste it. Oh, it's horrible.
I love the lady goes. This is going to be a little annoying. You're going to get like a little bit of a drip, and it's going to be numbing your throat. And I go, I've done cocaine enough. I know what we're doing. She was like, okay.
It's like, but without the high.
Yeah, without the high,
Yeah.
it's just the numbness. I took a Xanax before I went. I took a Xanax, so I knew I was gonna fucking flip out. No,
One of the things about the Xanax and like any kind of pain pill for me during this time is that it compromised my breathing.
Ooh.
So
That's
when
scary.
you know how when you have to like kind of like work to stay alive, you don't want to take anything.
No, yeah.
So I had very mild painkillers during this entire time. So, because I had to, when you take Xanax and even some of the painkillers that I get painkillers all the time because I have surgery all the time, but I need to be able to breathe correctly because it's like I can't breathe incorrectly because I'm still recovering.
yeah.
Right now I can maintain like a 98 oxygen on my own, but I couldn't. I mean, I could get above like 90 without a tank for a long time. So I'm just taking it easy on the intoxication for recreational purposes.
What was the first visitor you had, and what famous visitors showed up? And by the way, my qualifier for famous is Michael Ian Black's famous. So
Yeah, he didn't come. But you know what though? He lives in Connecticut, and also he texted me a lot, and I love him.
I know you guys are friends with him. I saw him. He was in Jim in your show.
Yes, I really love Michael.
Yeah. Who's the most famous person that visited you?
Really?
And
I mean, I was on a whole thing about like lessons of life, and you want to know the most famous? Okay, most famous person who visited me, old friend who happens to be famous right now. I don't even know if you know who he is, but you probably do. Randomly was in New York, and it counts as visiting me because this is a great story. Randomly was in New York, called up Jim, to be like, hey, I'm in Ramley, New York, lives in LA. He's like, want to hang out?
Yeah, meet
And
me
he
at
was
Cedar
like-
Sinai.
And he was like,
Sinai.
my wife is Jeannie's having brain surgery, and he's like, if you didn't want to see me, because he's a comedian,
Yeah.
he's like, you can come up with a better excuse than that. And he's like, no, I can't. And he goes, do you want me to come to the hospital? And Jim is a real loner. Like the fact that I write with Jim like took a really long time.
Yeah.
And it started with me like producing CDs for him, and it was just like, could you tag it here? And then eventually I'm like, I know I can do this with you, but he's a loner. He wanted to be alone. But this friend was like, I'm coming. He showed up at the cafeteria and sat with Jim for like the 10-hour surgery. Tony Hale, he's...
Oh, yeah, I know Tony Hale
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
He and I were back in my
Tony
early
Hale
20s.
was, what was the name of the...
Buster on Arrested Development, and he's on Veep.
Yeah. Veep. He's on Veep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's probably the most famous person who came to visit me at the hospital.
Tony
He and I
Hale
were in a sketch group in New York in our 20s together.
Really?
And so we're old friends. And so he just randomly, like now we're closer friends, but at the time we were like holiday card friends.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your kid's getting big, mine's getting
Yeah.
big. And he just randomly was in New York and sat with Jim. Like, it just
what a fucking, more of that, less of the cancel culture, and more, let's hear stories of when people were awesome and they don't get credit for it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, there's so many times where, like, you hear a story about that and you go, God, it makes me like that guy a lot. He didn't, there's no press to that. There's no publicist involved.
Nope.
It's just a good fucking
and also
person.
just even forget about press and publicist or whatever, just regular Joe lunch pail. Who is going to come to the hospital when you say your wife is having brain surgery? Oh, okay, I'll call you next year. And be like,
right.
oh, most people don't want to come.
Right.
He was like, he's like, get in the cafeteria. He like showed up and was like, and Jim was like, no, I just want to be alone. Because of course our priest and everyone was saying, Jim, I want to come to the hospital and sit with you. And he's like, I just want to be alone.
Yeah.
I just want to be alone and just sit there in the waiting room by myself. I don't want you.
When were you out of the woods where you could start having visitors?
About 2 weeks.
So it took
I
you 2
got
weeks.
out of the ICU because
Yeah.
I got off of, we got the tracheostomy, got rid of the intubation, got the PEG, which is a feeding tube. So I didn't have to, the endonasal, that's what I was looking for, tube. The one that goes up your mouth and down into your stomach to give the drip of the food.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible. The PEG, not much better, but way better than up the nose. Like having food through your nose is just, I can't.
Pass.
And it's just
terrible.
horrible. And it's also, you don't taste it, but it you kind of taste it.
I've had food come out of my nose. I know I didn't like it, so I'm
And it's
sure I would.
kind of, all food kind of tastes like vomit that way. You know what I mean? Because that's the only food. Sorry. I mean, it's just, this is real.
This is very real.
This is real.
This is what life. This is life.
This
This
is life.
is what scares me. Is this is life.
Yeah.
That's what's overwhelming me. Is that this is life.
Yeah. You
It's-
can't hide from pain.
You can't hide from that.
And I really feel like it might not be a brain tumor. It might not be anything. It might not be cancer, even though it seems like it's going to be cancer for everyone. It's like, that's the big fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not, like, just because I got a brain tumor doesn't mean I'm exempt from cancer. I basically have always like waited for like to be diagnosed with cancer. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. I was just feel like,
Everybody who's listening to this fucking thing. Yeah, everyone.
it's like, it is the worst. It is so, every kind of cancer, I know someone who has it, young, old, whatever. But you need to be aware. And I think that we have to teach our kids this too. You can't hide from pain. You got to be prepared. Don't go through your life as Debbie Downer thinking like, I'm going to get cancer my whole life. But be like, I'm going to be ready when I get it because I'm going to be ready to help someone. It's to hide from people who are sick, to hide from people who are disabled, I think is a detriment. And you can't force anyone to do anything. But if you're, the hand that rocks the cradle, right? I feel like we have an opportunity here to show our kids we're not afraid of people who lost their legs. Like if you see someone like that on the street, don't go the other way because you don't want your kid to know about that stuff yet.
That was very common when we were, I'm imagining we're roughly the same age, but that was very common when we were growing up. Hey, don't look.
Yeah,
I remember
rude.
that. Yeah,
it's rude. Yeah.
It's rude
to stare. Or at the kid with no hair, don't look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really important because, you know, there are those people that sail through their life and that not one thing goes wrong. But I'll tell you, it's not normal. Because when we started, after I went through, first of all, Jim learned how to change my tracheotomy. You always hear about, like, you know, when we're going to be changing their diapers. Like, I always picture me being the one to clean up after the old man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you guys get old, I don't picture I'm the one. But Jim learned, and he was funny. He did bits. There's a whole series, a cooking show on YouTube called Feeding Frenzy, where he's like, welcome to Feeding Frenzy, where you can watch me peg my wife. And he puts the baby food formula in the shaker like Tom Cruise in Cocktail, does this whole thing, and he puts in the syringe, he gives instructions. Then he has guests on the show, and he's like, you know, Bert, would you like to peg my wife? And then he's like, no, you're doing it. Here, give me that. You know, it's like the people who are the guests never are. He's like, well, I wouldn't have done it that way, but then again, I've been an expert pegger for like 45 years. Like he does this bit.
Is he aware what pegging is?
I know it's something really gross and dirty, but I never looked.
LeeAnn
I don't know. I have no
aware.
clue.
I mean, it's.
I would hope one day
it's
that you
probably
peg
has something
me,
to do
LeeAnn.
with like a
No idea
a
what that
wine
means.
cork in an orifice or something. I can imagine,
Who
but
knows?
I mean, I like really don't care because to me,
I think it's
a
fucking
beautiful.
great. I think it's
and
fucking,
also the people in the food tube community, like, we're like, thank you for normalizing this because we've never eaten through our mouth before, and like the people from the Dysphagia Association reached out and said, you know, thank you. I mean, it was like this gift that because I was like, I'm not going to put this on YouTube, Jim. This is the most disgusting, embarrassing, because I had a hose coming out of my, and they had to put the thing in. And he's like, come on. He'd light a candle. He'd be like, it's a romantic dinner. Very funny.
Is this on
really
YouTube
funny.
now?
It's on YouTube. It's on Jim's channel. He did this bit where he washed my hair and he did this character of how he was this woman from the South who was on her fifth husband. Like he was like the gossipy beautician.
Yeah, like
Truvy,
Steel Magnolias.
like Truvy and Steel Magnolias.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was like gossiping about, men,
Yeah.
That's funny.
and it was so funny. And I couldn't talk, but I was just like, he made these horrible things better. And before this, there were many times where I was like overwhelmed at home. And I was like, especially when your kids start to get older and they start to disobey you and you can't like control them anymore and they like run away and hide the Xbox from you. I'm like, we have discipline problems sometimes in our family. And I'm like, Jim, I just need the dad to come home and be I can't do this all myself. And I would go, why am I married to a comedian? And then during the sickness, I was like, okay, God, I understand why I'm married to a comedian, because he saved my life. He saved me when I would have gotten depressed. Like a feeding tube, like not being able to wash my hair, like not being able to walk to the bathroom by myself. He was so funny.
Yeah.
He invented characters. He was like, your horse, my lady. And then he'd pick me up and put me on his back and go, and take me to the bathroom, and I was like laughing.
He brought levity to a very heavy situation.
Well,
That's very healing.
Just to be fair, if I was going to have a brain tumor removed followed by pneumonia that I was going to have to recover from, Jim might be one of the only comedians. There's not I wouldn't be like, Stanhope would be great for this. You know what I mean? David Tell.
Comedian. I'm saying in my life.
Yeah, no. You were lucky.
My personal life, it's Jim.
It's Jim.
It's not just Jim. It's the Jim and Jeannie. Like why we know each other it's like no one else here is going to have the exact situation I had.
Right.
But there's going to be some reason when someday you two, and you might have already happened, are going to look at each other and be like, oh, we get it why in the beginning of time this was designed to be. And sometimes it's just looking at your kid and be like, oh, I get it. We made that together. We couldn't have done that with anyone else, you know? Mm-hmm. There's just little moments in life where you realize like it's not just a random series of little neurons firing. It's like there's a design. And it's like in this situation, I was like, oh, okay.
This is why you're in my life.
Yeah.
Or one of the reasons.
This is right now.
Yeah.
But because I can't imagine anyone telling me you're going to be on YouTube with a feeding tube. Like, I'm like, I would never do that. Like, what? That's like with my body showing and a hose. That's private. That's a very private. Like, that's like going to the bathroom practically, you know? Yeah. I wouldn't do that on YouTube. But if you watch it, it's adorable, you know? And he's the reason he's just that crazy. And then I'm that crazy too, you know? It's like, but separately, I mean, you can't make up that this would ever happen, you know, that I had this thing and what happened, and he canceled his shows and was my nurse. You know, it's like you just find your inner. I never would have thought, like, this is someone who doesn't, you know, pick up he takes off his socks with his feet under his desk. Okay?
And leaves them there?
Leaves them there.
Yeah.
Doesn't put them out, so at least I can just bend. I have to crawl under.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I can relate to that.
Why don't you just push them out so I don't have to crawl under the desk to get them? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Leave me alone. You know, it's like, this is someone who like is that not thinking about me crawling under the desk, but yet will give up everything, you know? So it's like people have lots of dimensions.
Yes, they do.
And you find them deeper when you go through, unfortunately, bad situations.
Right.
You find the good in people.
In yourself. I would imagine after this, I would imagine that you feel stronger than you understood you ever were.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I feel stronger, and I also feel I'm not superior at all.
No,
but I
no.
do feel wiser as my own critic. Not like wiser than you, but I feel wiser. I feel wiser because when I saw that I was just controlling just in order to feel like I was in control, and I was robbing my kids of the ability to like take care of themselves. So now, you know, if my 10-year-old comes up to me and goes, "Can I have a play date with Piper on Thursday?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can, but here's what you're going to do. You're going to email her mom and you're going to ask permission. Then you're going to look on the calendar and you're going to see what you have after school that day." Because there's a lot of things that go into making a play date for you that I never thought before of connecting you with.
Right.
You just get the play date.
And they actually want that. They really want that autonomy and independence and to be in charge of their own lives to the extent that they're capable, you know, maturity or whatever. They really want that.
And I was not letting them because I was like, it's not efficient.
Right.
And it started to really strike me when, you know, let's say we'd be traveling and I would say to my 10-year-old, "Katie, can you call room service and ask them to pick up this tray? Because it's like we have this tiny room and this huge table in it. I need it out. I'm doing something." And she was like, "There's so many buttons on this phone." She's 10.
Right.
She can do an iPad and all this other stuff, but like a hotel phone that literally has buttons with a picture of a guy with a tray.
Right.
Yeah.
She went with a cord. We don't have one of those.
Right.
And I was like, figure it out. Figure out how to use that phone.
Yeah. Because you can. And when you let them know that you believe they can, they intrinsically start building self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right? When you set them up to succeed and you say, "I believe in you, you can do it." That's what grows healthy self-esteem faster than anything else.
Yes.
Yeah. Is achieving on their own feet. It's really powerful. That's really powerful that you shifted from A to B. And Does it make you feel less stressed or more stressed to let them just be in control of things more?
I mean, I'm just less stressed in general.
In general.
Like, I feel like I would get stressed before when they, when my sister would say something like, I let my kids make breakfast. I'd be like, I'm so stressed thinking about them making breakfast. They put their like egg hands all over everything and, or whatever.
Their egg hands all over everything.
You come in, all 4 burners are going, the blender's going.
Yeah, you just picture that like Happy Mother's Day.
Right. Oh, thanks
it's like
a lot.
Classic. But
Dad, do you like your
whole
chicken
thing is
medium
that
rare or rare?
this has made me realize that like it's actually like so positive to empower them to do that kind of stuff that it's stress reliever.
Yes, you don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
Really, at the end of the day, are you going to remember the breakfast they made you or the mess you had to clean
Right.
up? It's the breakfast. It's the breakfast
Right.
they made you.
And so we do a thing where we do a sign-up sheet. So on Sunday nights.
Okay, wait, before we even start this, does Jim have to do any chores?
No, but he
There we go.
he packs himself.
Okay.
Bert
He
packs
also
himself.
he also does like when one of the things that I remember hearing an interview with Ray Romano at years ago, and someone said to him, "When did you really realize that you were such a success?" And he said, "When my wife stopped complaining that I was throwing my clothes in the middle of the floor.
Oh, wow.
That's when I
I
realized."
guess I haven't made it yet.
And I
Nope.
said to Jim, "I guess you haven't made it yet,
Right.
Because I don't think I'm ever gonna."
No, I'm
No
never
matter
gonna-
how. But the thing is because I'm like, dude, it's in the middle.
Yeah.
You didn't even kick
Oh, yeah.
it to the side. It's like literally in my path,
Size 13 shoes in the middle.
in the middle.
Yeah.
So he is like a little bit more conscious of like, not, like I'm not irritating him as much when I'm just like, look, the thing is like wetting dishes, I'd rather just have it dry.
Right.
Like there's certain things that he's trained about because he doesn't want me to complain.
Yeah.
But also I feel like since I've been sick, he cares a little bit more
Right.
because
Oh,
he
he has a-
sees he did it. He did
Right.
it himself. He did pickups. He relates a little bit more
Right.
to what it's like to be me.
Right.
And I relate a little bit more of what it's like to be him. And we did do a little bit of a Freaky Friday rehearsal because I was like, he says things that I overreact to in our history. What is that supposed to mean? And when he was my caregiver, afterwards, I said things that offended him, where he was like, "Don't you remember I was there and I did all this work?" And I'm like, "No, I don't really remember that at all." And he's like, "How you didn't see that I?" And I'm like, "None of the kids see anything I do." It's like you have to understand, like that's part of being like a caregiver.
Yeah.
Right.
Am I boring you?
No. I can't get past. I can't get past. It's been like a few things in my life where I was like, how does that even work? Like, can't imagine if I did that. Like, maybe talking about stand up. Like, can't imagine what kind of work it would take to get to being a successful stand up. And then people say stuff, oh, like you got to bomb a lot. That terrifies people. I'm looking at that through this story going like, I can't imagine having the wisdom to go through something as intense as what you went through. I can't imagine all the things that you had to deal with that I immediately go, oh, I would shut down. Like I would not,
You'd
couldn't
be
do it.
surprised though, because it's like when you're talking about like the shark, like that's what I was thinking. It's like if you're alone, you're gonna be terrified that you're gonna snorkel and the shark's gonna eat you.
Oh yeah.
But you're snorkeling with your kids. The experience of seeing the coral reef with your kids supersedes the fear of being eaten by a shark. And then your fear of getting eaten by a shark is completely wiped out by the fact that you're going to protect your children, right? Do you understand that
I can understand little parts of your story where you go, no, I'm having it taken out on Tuesday. Now I'm getting this taken care of. I've said this story so many times. It's the only thing. I went and got a full CT scan for to see if I was going to have a stroke or if I had any blood clot problems in my heart, any blockage. And I was so terrified going in that they would say I had a problem. And this old black woman said, and people go, well, why you gotta be black, Bert? Because it's better when black women give you advice like this. It means more. It's richer.
But she was really black.
She was, but why would you include that? Because I think it adds character to the story. She says, honey, it is better that you walk through those doors than we wheel you through those doors. And I went, what? She goes, I see people getting wheeled in through those doors so they can find the blockage. The fact that you walk through those doors means they'll never wheel you through those doors. And I think about that so fucking much, where I go, you got to get in front of it. You got to, like every time I go to the doctor, I hate it.
When I had kids, I changed. I was the opposite. I never went to the doctor for anything. And when I had kids, I was like, I'm getting a physical every year, single year.
You're more evolved than I was. Like now I am. Right. Now I'm like that.
Right.
But before, it's like the years were just going by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always thought, like, oh yeah, I'll get a mammogram
I'll get on
someday,
there. I'll get on,
like, or whatever. And now, like, also there's this new thing where Jim has skin cancer.
He does?
It's small.
Yeah.
He can get it's because people die from that shit.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
It's
like,
very
they get
dangerous.
a little badot and like, nah. And then they're dead in like 2, because it spreads.
Yeah.
So he gets his twice a year because he's that pale Irish skin.
I got to go check for skin cancer.
You do.
I do.
You do.
Last time I was there, I was like, can you check me for skin cancer? And she was like, no. I was like, all right, cool. I guess I'm good.
No, make an appointment with a dermatologist. By the way, your insurance pays for it.
Yeah, I should get a dermatology appointment.
And Jim, now they said they want to see him twice a year.
By the way, did you just see what I just did?
What?
You told your whole story. You go, get a dermatology appointment. I went, that's right. And I looked at LeeAnn and I go, I should get a dermatology appointment. And she was like, yeah, you should. Did you learn nothing from this story?
Go ahead. Set up your appointment. You can do it.
How long ago did this happen? And how long after it happened did you start writing the book?
Okay. So this happened in 2017, April. Okay. It's now what, 2019?
That was very quick turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first year I was pretty it was about me physically recovering. But because I am a writer, I had to write during that recovery time, even when I couldn't physically write. So like, for instance, in the hospital, I was giving Jim bits about medical stuff. So what happened was I would come out of the MRI and I'd be like, write this down. This is so funny. The clown horn. Like I would give him a list of stuff to write down, but it wouldn't make any sense. Then later I could look at it and be like, oh, okay, you know those clown horns that, like I would make stuff up and bullet point it. So a lot of it I had to decipher. My sister would come visit me and I would complain to her about all the other members of my family who like had bad breath and like things like that. Yeah. So I told her, write down, let's make a list of do's and don'ts in the hospital.
I read that list.
So that's the list. That's why it's not that good but it's real. It's exactly what I was saying at the time. I didn't edit it later and polish it up. So the first thing that happened is that about 6 months after my surgery, we did Noble Ape, which is a comedy special with like half an hour.
For 2 seconds, I was like, hold on. I know Noble Ape. It's Jim's special. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry.
I feel like it's also mine because it's like basically all about like my brain tumor. But a lot of the material from his point of view and also stuff that I kind of came up with went into the writing of that. Mm-hmm. So obviously the book is not Jim's stand-up material. Okay. Yeah. I want to make that very clear. But I had a lot of like poems and weird, like kind of comic observations that I made during that year from discovery to recovery. And I compiled them in different, notes on the iPhone or on my sister's. I had a lot of stuff. So before I was writing had brain surgery, I was writing a book ad that was loosely called House Runner, which was like how to run your house like a TV show. But it was like a funny kind of Amy Sedaris style, big pictures of like laundry rooms with, you know, kind of applied the production concept to the home. The wardrobe department, catering,
right?
You know, craft services.
That's really clever.
So
craft services.
Meanwhile, I had a book agent. So he's also my friend because he was also did our deals on Dad is Fat and Food, a Love Story, which I was a story editor of. So he's my friend, lived in downtown near us. He checked in to see if I was okay about like a few weeks after I got home. And I was like, Simon, I'm late on the book. You know, I was thinking he was calling me being like, where's the manuscript?
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, there is no book, Jeannie. Don't worry about it. He goes, people, if you want to write a book, you're going to have to tell this insane story about how you just survived an enormous brain tumor with 5 kids. And it's insane. That's the book. And I was like, no, I'm not writing that book. I'm going to put a chapter in the House Runner book about, oh yeah, and then I had a brain tumor. He's like, no. He's like, if you're writing a book, that's what, he's like, everyone's calling me being like, what's going on with Jeannie Gaffigan? So I'm like, fine. So I realized I'm not going to be like 10 years ago, I had a tumor in my brain. I got to do it now because I got to move on. And it's going to be cathartic for me to do this. So what I did was I did a chronology. What happened? Try to figure out for myself. And then I had all these other notes. And so I felt like I was kind of interviewing my sick self because I was like, what's a clown horn? Or that I keep using that example, but I can't think of anything else. But it's, or, a list. Oh, the shift schedule. Like this is all part of the story. Yeah. And then also like, if you noticed, when I'm stuck in the ICU, there's like kind of this time standstill. And I make these observations about how it's like Vegas, but without the fun, you're trapped and all this stuff. But also that's like the moments when I would like talk to God or have a memory of my childhood or whatever. So there was a lot of structure that I worked on then. So in 2018, I don't know, around Christmas, around December, the holidays, I gave a manuscript to Simon and I said, you know, here's a manuscript. And then he was like, okay, we need to make this into a proposal because it's so long. It was like 700 pages. It was like a manifesto. So I made a proposal and then he shopped it around and I got some offers and I got, you know, a deal. And then I got an editor and then in January, she was like, okay, let's start working on this. So what's happened over the past year has just been like, this is too long, this is too short, this is chapters that have a name.
Editing.
You know, I used to have editing. I used to have like a long appendix with like a glossary of terms that were like funny, like what, like pet term, like, and then she, you know, was like, it ends on such a uplifting note that it almost seems like the glossary will be a little bit too glib. Like we can do that as like a promo or something. And then I did the an acknowledgments that was like, I didn't thank anybody in the acknowledgments except I thanked my brain tumor. And I was like, thank you, brain tumor, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have met Dr. Joshua Better. You know, that I named everyone, but I made it seem like it was about thanking the brain tumor for bringing these people together. Yeah. So that was kind of a comic.
That's great.
Bit. But so then here we are. So it was all that. And then I'm going to move on and get another brain tumor, write another book.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
How were your kids when into recovery? Were any of them afraid of you or like scared of what they saw?
I mean, here's what happened. My kids were amazing. Mm. Jim kept them away from the ICU. Both of Jim's parents passed away before I met him. And he has he did not want the kids to see me. He doesn't, you know, who knows if that's the last memory of your like, you know, you have the pictures of your mother's like makeup on and beautiful. And then you have the picture of, and he was a boy. So he was not.
They did that to me with my Uncle Hig. They brought me in, he had cancer and they said, you should say goodbye to him. And he was didn't even look like the guy I knew. He had lost all this weight, and they had not lollipops, but it looked like a lollipop with a sponge on it, and that's how he was getting his water.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, and
passed
that's
on
You
that.
don't really
traumatic.
forget that.
And he
yeah.
probably didn't even know you came in the room.
Probably not. No.
I mean, the kids didn't come because eventually there's a visit from my boy. My daughter came when I was out because she was going on a school trip and wanted to see me. And they let her. When I moved into that other room, when I started to have visitors,
Yeah.
and my thing is, I also want to say, if you're funny, you should be visiting people in the hospital because it helped me heal. Funny people help you heal.
Really?
And I mean, when people come in and they're like, "Hi, I'm so sorry," it makes you worse. I don't know. I just feel like we're programmed to like put on a sad face, and
It probably forces you to care for them if they come in concerned or upset or fragile. My instinct would be to make them feel better, which is not the purpose, right? The purpose is for them to make you feel better.
I mean, I'm not saying be inappropriate, but like my comedian friends were amazing.
Right.
Like my friend Karen came in and she was like, "You're not even bald?" That was the first thing she said. And it made me so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, "That robe, that looks great on you." And then she's like, "When you're model skinny, you can wear anything." Because that was like this big.
Right.
I look like Auschwitz.
Wait, who's Karen? Do I know her?
Karen Bergreen. She's a...
I know Karen Bergreen very well.
Yeah, I adore her.
I love Karen Bergreen.
Karen came and visited me in the hospital and made
Jews
me
for
laugh.
Jesus. Aren't those called Christians?
Yeah, she's so funny.
By the way, I hope Karen hears this and goes, "God damn it, did Bert just say one of my jokes from 20 years ago?"
I mean, she is so funny. But also we have like a texting relationship where she'll like just see a picture and text me a picture and make a comment on it. And we'll go back and forth. I'm like, we've got 20 minutes on this picture. Like, it's like having funny people in your life. It's such an amazing, wonderful thing. And I'm so grateful for it because I feel like it helped me heal. I can't say there was one thing. Obviously, the chief of neurosurgery, my husband being a really funny guy, funny people visiting me in the hospital, love of my family. Until there was a lot of factors. But in the book, I really was recognizing that that's a need that I have. Maybe other people don't have the need to laugh and to make people laugh, but like coming up with how this is funny was so therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
And after we started doing the material about the medical stuff on stage, we found out that an enormous portion of every man who is in the audience has been in a hospital,
Right.
has had these experiences, has been with a parent, with
spouse,
God forbid a child.
Yeah.
They know the bureaucracy, they know the smells, they know the feeling you after you drink the gastro for the, what is that thing, that colonoscopy?
The barium.
The drink that makes you have diarrhea.
I think it's barium.
Yeah, like
That
it's like
colors your
Jim does
innards.
this whole bit about like me forcing him to get one. Oh my god! And it's hilarious.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
What was the hardest thing to recover from? What took the longest or was the most difficult?
Swallowing.
Swallowing. Was it because of the nerve having to readjust itself after removing the tumor?
Yeah, the swallowing was the worst.
Was it? How long did it take?
It's still.
That's
I
what
still
the
in
surgery.
swallow therapy. This is a surgery for
your
my
vocal
cord,
cords,
but it's
right.
all part of it.
Yeah.
I can swallow better now that I had this surgery, but swallowing for sure. And also my recovery, the most difficult part of my recovery was not eating or drinking.
Right.
Nothing by mouth.
How
It was
long?
4 months.
4 months. That's a really long time. And then I'm sure you didn't just eat a pizza. You had to.
No, I had to eat like 2
liquids
bites
or
of applesauce
Right.
and stuff like that.
Wow.
But it was like,
Can
I'm
you
not
eat like
even,
a cheeseburger now?
now I can eat a cheeseburger. As a matter of fact, I had a monk fasting from cheeseburgers for me in solidarity.
Oh my
until I
God.
ate a cheeseburger. So it gave me actually motivation because I was like, this poor guy can't eat a cheeseburger.
Right.
And he's like, it's my favorite thing in the whole world.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah.
a monk. So it's like, that's his one treat. Now I've taken it away from him. But yeah, I did it. I actually the first cheeseburger I ate is on actually my Instagram feed because
Really?
yeah.
What's your Instagram? What's
Jeannie Gaffigan. It's
gotta
very
follow
creative. So I didn't really swallow it, but I
tasted it.
yeah, I mean it can't some of it went down.
Right.
I've done that before when I'm dieting. Jeannie
It's
right here, honey.
I
Gaffigan.
gotcha. Follow.
Yeah.
Did you lose anything permanently? Is anything like your sense of taste, sense of smell?
Yeah, I mean, my left vocal cord is permanently paralyzed,
Right.
and it's a spastic paralysis. So it doesn't comply with all like this. That's why this surgery wasn't like what this is a very common surgery,
I see.
but it didn't really do as well as we had hoped. I have hearing loss. But it's doing really, I have a hearing aid. I'm not wearing it right now because it's weird around like headset. I thought I'd be wearing a headphone, but I don't wear it on like podcasts or the air or anything. I wear glasses now, and we had 20/20 vision before, so nothing I can really complain about. Oh, and I have tingling. I have half of my body, my right side, is really not as sensitive to like heat and pain.
Interesting.
So
those nerve that whatever that is, nerve that is in your brain is dulled. Sounds like it's kind of dulled.
it's something to do with something called the spinopathic tract. So it's nothing. The brain is very weird. It's a weird thing. Like
it's all electric, right?
It's all electric.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of weird numbness in this side of my body.
Right.
And if I stand in a pool, one leg will be cold and the other one will just feel like I'm in like kind of a room temperature jello.
How interesting.
Yeah. It's just like something I'm sure like it will come back at some point. But
what's refreshing about you is as I look at your Instagram, there's no pictures of you. Like it's all of you. It's just your family. Like you're like a legit mom. Like it's like, oh, here's Jim and the kids in Africa on safari. Here are the two boys together. Here's my daughter. Here we all are.
Well, there are like the last like 5 ones are like all plugging my book, which is like very unusual for me. I'm like, oh, is this creepy? But it's like things happen now. And I also, people gave me quotes. And so when they gave me the graphic for the quote, it's the book cover, which is me.
Right.
So it looks like I'm shamelessly plugging my book. But if you look at all the reason I'm doing it, it's because people wrote really nice things about it.
That's great.
So
well, I enjoyed it. Like I said, we got it late Friday. You see my bookmark.
I took it
I'm
in the
about halfway
bathroom with
through.
me.
You're about to go into surgery. I got to that place, but I'm definitely finishing it. And I have a podcast. It's not nearly as popular as Bert's, but I'm going to have us read this as a book club and book club it, if that's okay.
Of course.
I do a book club once a month, and I think this would be a great book club because your story is really miraculous, really. And I'm not religious, but I very much believe in having faith in God.
Wait, who's
and
this?
Believing that your path is where it's supposed
That
to
is
be.
Leslie Schlechter, the PA.
I was wondering. Yeah, that's Leslie Schlechter. I thought that's what she looked like. I'm sorry, LeeAnn. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
I don't like that.
But she's like 6'2".
Yeah.
And she's beautiful. The pictures in here,
Yeah.
even the black and white. I was like, wow, that's a really pretty lady. Who is that? I thought it was your friend until I read, the book.
She also is my friend. But
Here we
she's
go,
like,
ladies and gentlemen.
It's your friend forever, I'm sure.
This is the first bite of a cheeseburger.
And you asked about that, not knowing that was my first bite.
Okay. So if you start choking, we'll just continue with our meal.
If I start choking, I can wash it down. That's the whole point. But I
Your
have
kids
little-
are oblivious to this
for
moment.
you, so you can
Which is really what you want, right?
Yeah. Someone's trying hot sauce, that looks like, for the first time. God, now I want a cheeseburger.
It was a good one.
Well, what a gift you've given your kids to see you go through something so intense and challenging and long-lasting and terrifying, as to see how you handle it and have recovered from it, and what a team the two of you were. That's a really big gift. And, not that anybody wants that gift, but
Yeah.
if that's the end result of the gift, that's amazing. That's something that they won't learn anywhere else in life. And if you take your pears and make a pear cobbler out of it,
Yeah.
that's a good thing to do, right? Is to say, look what we can do as a family. We can do anything.
Yes.
And we can do it with God. Like I said, I'm not religious. But I do very much believe in God.
I'm very religious.
And
But
he
even
was
if
definitely at play in this story.
It was. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
No, the stuff with the Mount Sinai, I was like, oh my God, this is the way life actually is supposed to work in general.
I'm so happy that Bert asked me if I was like, hey, can I get a little special room for a comedian's wife? And there was nothing like that.
Right.
Like, I'm so glad he asked me that because I feel like people are like, I bet that's why all this good stuff happened
Right.
to her because she was in the VIP back door.
No.
And I sure wasn't.
It happened because that's the way it was supposed to be.
Yes.
Because that's the path that was laid out,
And
right?
believe me, I've been the beneficiary of getting VIP service from being at
Sure.
Montreal or whatever and getting the back door, not waiting in the front or whatever.
Sure.
I'm not going to say that I haven't been the beneficiary of that. But in this situation, I was a number,
Right.
but I wasn't because something happened.
Right.
And I experienced both where I literally was like, yeah, I just told you I have a mass in my brain and I need an appointment. And they're like,
3 weeks.
is this your first? Are you did you send the report? It was the clinical, uninterested responses I was blown away by.
But you know what's really bad about that, I think, is that the general public, my dad, would have been like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to wait 3 weeks. You're lucky.
I did.
Everybody
say that.
does because you trust these doctors, and somebody should have said, no. She needs to be there today. Somebody who's seen that and was a professional should have said that for you because how are you supposed to know? That bothers me so much that it took your perseverance and your having a childhood friend or a childhood friend's husband and all these things that you put into play that allowed the Red Sea to part that a lot of people don't have,
I also want to say that, like, I didn't really push this in the book so much, it's just kind of implicit, but be your own advocate.
Absolutely.
Like,
Whoa,
that's what I mean.
You are taking words out of LeeAnn's mouth. She has said that to our children. Advocate for yourself. Be your own advocate. Our daughter's dyslexic, by the way, and so a lot of times, and she won't stand up for herself. She gets extra time on tests, and LeeAnn says, "I can't help you if you don't advocate for yourself. Be your own advocate." I believe in that so much. Be your own advocate. I think that's a beautiful thing to say.
Because we just bend over and take it all the time.
Yes.
And they tell us, go to the back of the line, just be, because we're like, oh, you're a medical receptionist. I better listen to you.
Guess I'll go to the
And it's
back of the line.
Right. And every once in a while, like this time I was like, oh, maybe that receptionist will think I'm crazy and won't like me if I go and ask again, why is my doctor, why would he say, get an MRI, come back in 2 weeks, I'll give you the results. And why are you saying sit here until he calls you?
Right. I know.
If I had, I mean, it's like I had to be like, wait a minute, I can't just sit here until he calls me.
Right.
He's not, because then in an hour, I'm going to be like, oh, wait a minute. I just remembered my doctor isn't here. Like
Right.
you have to take, and I think all these little tiny lessons I took along the way. And I know that you can't go from 0 to brain tumor in like 1 second, or maybe you can. It's like the thing where you're like, can barely lift a weight and then your kid gets trapped under a car and you just lift it right off of them.
Right. Right.
Maybe that's in you. I know you're like, I don't know how you could deal with this because I would freak out. But yet you can deal with the shark, the idea of the shark when you're with your kids.
Right.
And I would say that you would even punch the shark in the nose. You wouldn't be like, eat me, shark. You'd be like, you better not touch my kid.
Yeah.
Because that thing comes out of you.
Yeah, it does.
Like daddy bear. And you get that way. I really feel like all these little pains and going through your career and going through a rejection and a bunch of all the shit you have to eat and all the scary pregnancy stuff, it all builds up a little bit more of this stamina for getting to be able to face
Right.
the really,
scary, yeah.
the really tough stuff and to advocate for yourself when you need to.
advocating for yourself takes practice, I think. You have to practice and you have to have opportunities presented to you for you to practice. But I think also a lesson I learned from being a parent, our oldest daughter, Georgia, when she was 3, tripped over her own feet and fell and broke her jaw and her 4 front teeth here, right under the jawline. And when I saw it, I was like, ooh, this is really bad. I'm going to stay calm, but we're going to go see a pediatric dentist like now. Went to see her, and she had me hold Georgia while she examined her. And as soon as she opened Georgia's mouth, the dentist's face totally changed. And I went, we're fucked. Something's wrong. This is bad. And when she told me, yes, she's broken her jaw and she's broken her teeth, they're going to be surgically removed, something activated in me where I was like, this is happening tomorrow. We are not sitting with this in her mouth another day. Let's get this done now. And I stayed really calm with her. But to be able to do that for yourself is not an instinct I have for myself until I had kids. And then I went, well, why can't I just apply that to me? I should be taking care of me with the same fierceness that I take care of my children, because
So I have to say that even though at first I was like, well, I wasn't like that.
In the mic.
Oh,
Sorry.
At first I was like, I know. I feel like we're all just hanging out here.
I forgot.
I forgot we were on a podcast. I was like, I literally didn't see the camera. I was like, I'm just hanging out. Now I totally forgot what I was going to say. You were talking about remind me what we were talking about.
Being fierce for yourself.
When she held Georgia, she saw the look.
Right.
She's like, oh.
Okay, so I had said, you're so much more wise than me because you're applying it to yourself and I was just applying it to everyone else. But I just realized as we're speaking that except for minor things like a sprained foot or whatever, the brain tumor thing was the first time.
Right.
That I was like, it's something's wrong with me. And I was like, get it out.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, I'm not waiting.
Right.
Oh, when I hear people talk about cancer and then they go, yeah, I have an appointment in a month. I go, whoa.
I could tell you something that's happening right now in my life where I'm like, what? I would never take a month. And if they said cancer, you got to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, you got to push.
People just
don't be afraid to be a
we
jerk.
have 6 more tests to do before we can tell you what other tests you need.
Okay.
It's
can we book them all tomorrow?
Right.
All 6. Let's do it.
They should have
time.
An advocate app.
An advocate where it gives you phrases you can use.
Yeah, hey, I'm at the doctor's office. This isn't working.
Yeah.
These are known phrases that receptionists at a doctor's office have said work with them.
Yeah.
And then you're like, awesome. We just had a real estate agent. And I said to LeeAnn, I absolutely love her. She said, why? I said, she seems like the kind of person that gets the table at the restaurant, even though there aren't any tables available. And I like that in people because I'm not that person. I will stand by the trash can and eat my lunch on the trash can because I just won't advocate for myself. I'm really glad this happened. I mean, I've been a fan of Jim's. I've known Jim for probably 20 years.
You mean the podcast? You're glad the podcast happened?
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm glad the brain tumor happened.
What'd you say?
I'm glad the brain tumor happened.
Yeah.
What? Nothing's wrong with me. I have a few minor things.
Can I tell you that part of me goes, is a weird parallel. I got a sneaker guy. Someone hooked me up with the sneaker guy. Do you know where this is going?
No idea, but I'm interested in this weird parallel.
I was like, I like certain sneakers, but I can't always find them. They go, yeah, let me. Crystalia is like, let me give you my sneaker guy. So I was like, great. So I hit him up. I was like, oh, cool. I got a sneaker guy. You're my tumor guy. So if I ever get a tumor, I now know that I can just call you and go, hey, I got a tumor too. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I'm freaking out. Can you talk to LeeAnn on the phone and help me figure out a game plan? Tell me what you did.
Well, actually, any kind of crisis in general, but brain, I know a lot about. But any kind of crisis in general, just in terms of the reaction, you know what I mean? Who's around you? What helped me? And it's not for everyone. Some people are wouldn't be as reliant on humor or prayer or family. But those are the things.
You got me. You got me. I'll never, as long as I do this podcast, I've never cried that quickly when you said you grabbed the guy's hands, that is so me.
Yeah, that is very Bert.
That is like that. I mean, I'm crying again. That is like right up my fucking alley. That is like, God. I mean, when you said that, I went, oh, that is where my head's at, my heart's at. Oh, I don't think I'll ever forget that as long as I fucking do this podcast.
I think that when you said, I'm glad this happened, I know you meant about the podcast.
I just wanted to clarify.
But I have to say that I'm glad that I had a brain tumor. I'm very glad I did. And I think that I've gained more than I lost in the end. Mm-hmm. And I know this could have gone a different way. And at that point, I probably wouldn't be saying I'm grateful I had the brain tumor because I'd probably be dead. Or my husband would be, not making people laugh anymore and being, daddy daycare or whatever. But that's not what happened. What happened was I went through on this journey that was really, really hard. And I gained more than I lost.
Yeah.
On the journey. So.
And it was for a purpose.
And it was for a purpose.
It was for a purpose. Even if maybe the purpose was to write this book so that someone else who's going through something similar doesn't feel alone. Because I think so many people, especially today, feel very alone and don't know where to turn for companionship's the wrong word, but for someone who that is something they can relate to in a very real way. So that's a really huge gift you give to the world by processing this, taking notes through the whole thing. I mean, I can't believe you were in ICU making notes. I mean, that's pretty exceptional.
It was a coping mechanism.
I'm
because
sure.
When we went, you guys probably know when you went through some of your, traumas, like being like processing it through the lens of comedy helps.
Yes, it does.
It takes the edge off.
It does.
And
but what a gift you gave to the world. That's a huge gift.
Thank you. There's no Shakespeare. There's no the Bible.
Doesn't need to be.
But it's like, I hope so, because it more of it came out for me than a lifestyle change came out for me.
Right.
And, the book is very a casual tone of voice. It's like me talking to my friend. I didn't write it to impress anyone.
Right.
I don't really care if people like that comedian's wife thinks she's a writer. I don't care. I wrote it like a blog.
It's very conversational. Yeah. It's very easy to read.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for doing this. And I mean, I think of the person in the car who's just got bad news and hearing this going, she's still here. Like you sometimes you live. We're all going to die, but sometimes you live.
Sometimes you live.
Thank you so much for doing this, Jeannie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
No.